Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Spanish Standard Radio. I'm your host, Enrique Sanchez. Tonight we have a special guest. Can you introduce yourself, please, to the audience?
Yes, my name is Emily Wu Truong.
Welcome for
Uh,
being on the show, Emily.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm
So,
happy to
it's
be here.
likewise. So, explain a little bit about your background and what you do and how you are a mental health advocate.
Okay, so I've been a mental health advocate for over 10 years, inspired by Congresswoman Judy Chu's husband, Mike Ang, when he was still an assembly member for the San Gabriel Valley.
Hmm.
10 years ago, and I now call myself a rainbow grief artist because grief is so heavy that I have to balance it out with rainbows.
Hmm.
There's so many things to be sad about. I lost my father in September 2022, and like it was a surprise when he died, because I just we weren't expecting it, and my heart went into a very dark, deep place. To like, even though I'm like a suicide prevention advocate, it doesn't necessarily mean that you won't have thoughts of suicidal ideation. And one night, that's where my mind went, and I called 988, the National Suicide Hotline, which too many mental health organizations promote. And I try to warn people that, hey, be cautious of calling 988 because they could call 911 on you, and the first responders will show up, and they will place you in a psychiatric incarceration against your will, basically placed in healthcare facilities like your local ER hospital, a psychiatric ward. Um, you'll be placed in a 5150, and while you're inside, they won't listen to you. They will dehumanize you. You will
Hmm.
not have any constitutional rights. And it's so I want to caution other people about calling 988 because you might be held against your will without being able to have a voice inside the system.
Is that similar to a 5150?
That is a 5150, yes.
Oh,
When
okay, okay.
the California law enforcement code for when you are a danger to yourself or to others. But I think that policies need to change so that we can, individuals who do not have a background of violence are not treated like a person who is violent when they are not, they're not going to do any harm to anybody. But
Hmm.
people in the hospital are scared of them because they just watch them like a dog in a cage,
Hmm.
like, and observing them to make sure that they're not trying to kill themselves. So
Hmm.
yeah, it was a traumatic 50 hours that existed in two different places at USC Arcadia Hospital, and also Kaiser Mental Health Center, which I just call the Kaiser Psych Ward, on
Hmm.
college. Yeah, I've given them both negative reviews online.
I see. Yeah, I know that right now, especially with the economical, political, and social climate right now, ever before, mental health is becoming a concern. It's not just a personal concern. It's considered a national and also a social issue concern because many people who don't have access to mental health or don't know where to get mental health, properly, they end up either suiciding themselves or whatever. So it's very important that especially minorities, people of color, they need to have access to better mental health services, and that can prevent people from being either locked up indefinitely or ended up getting killed. Like in many cases, when people are having a mental breakdown, law enforcement goes first, and in many cases, sadly, many of those people end up getting killed. So, what people don't understand about law enforcement is that law enforcement, they're not trained in mental health. Their only job is to enforce the law. That's why they're called law enforcement. So I feel this is, maybe you could elaborate on this, when there is a mental health crisis, it's fine if the law enforcement goes as a backup, but I believe a mental health clinician or specialist should go with them, so that way they could diffuse the situation. Because in many cases, law enforcement resolves things through the gun instead of using the diplomacy. So in your case, like, how do you think law enforcement could better handle cases of mental health crises?
Well, first of all, I wish that the police were not ever called because the way they informed me that I was being 5150 was at the entrance of the ER after the paramedics decided to arbitrarily take me to the my local ER. And the way that they spoke to me was, "I'm sorry to have to do this to you, but do you know you're being 5150?"
Oh, okay.
And I was like, oh, so they arbitrarily decided to do this to me, and and there's no due process. It's just like so the news is that as of last week, I wrote an email to the Arcadia fire chief, and because it was the night of my 5150 on July 29, 2023.
Hmm.
uh, the Arcadia Fire Department and the Arcadia Police Department showed up, and they were all men. There were no
Hmm.
females. I mean, not to stereotype men, it's just that females, have a. I would think that females have a more compassionate side of them to, de-escalate an individual who
Right.
is, because I
For the
was
most
crying.
part. Hmm.
Yeah. So, and in this email I sent to the fire department, the fire chief, I also CC'd the five city council members for the city of Arcadia.
Seed seed,
And
what does that mean? Seed seed.
the email. So I
Okay,
emailed
email,
the,
email, email.
yeah,
Okay.
I emailed the fire chief, and I CC'd the Arcadia City Council, all five of them.
Hmm.
And because I asked them, the fire chief, some questions regarding the bill, the emergency ambulance bill that they were still sending me since November of this past year. And I got several of them, and I was just like, oh shit, like they're still, I'm like re-traumatized just by receiving the bills and for $474.74. And sometimes people get scared when they get these medical bills and it's like,
Well,
is it going
yeah.
to, affect my credit score?
Right.
And so I was very hesitant whether to confront this bill or not. And because I just didn't want to pay it because it's like this was an involuntary hospitalization. I didn't want it. And then on top of it, I was mistreated, victim of patient abuse, psychiatric abuse, and why the hell should I have to pay for this? I didn't
Right.
cause it. 988 caused it.
Right.
And and so like in the email, um I asked a bunch of questions, some questions that I got from a lawyer friend up north, and then I added my own concerns as well. I wrote like, do you have do you know if SGB cares still exist in the city of Arcadia because they were absent. Now, SGB care is one of the St. Gabriel Valley Council of Governments. They created their own like mental health unarmed crisis response team to talk to the homeless, to people who are having emotional distress. And But look at this. Back then it's
Hmm.
Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They're only available from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. So what about people having mental emotional meltdowns after 7 p.m.? Like, okay, so
Right.
you only get the police. Like, so I specifically made a request in my email, CCing the city council members, my request of the city of Arcadia creating their own formal presentation of what are the existing mental health crisis response teams that exist servicing the city of Arcadia. So, and asking them to host this presentation at the next Arcadia Health Fair. And I hope they will pull through, because I don't want what happened to me to happen to someone else.
Hmm.
It's so traumatizing. And and I hope, I sincerely hope, because I wrote in that email, I want to know, how does the Arcadia Police Department, the Arcadia Fire Department, and all of these different various mental health crisis response teams working together to aid an individual in emotional distress and
Hmm.
experiencing suicidal ideation? Because I feel like these policies need to change the way that a person is treated inside a healthcare facility. It's traumatizing. It's like
Hmm.
I was already crying my eyes out, and I felt like those first responders had no idea like how to handle a woman who is crying profusely. And and uh, they were like, I felt like the two questions they asked mainly were, oh, have you had a diagnosis before? Have you had suicidal ideation before? And where is your ID? Do you have insurance? That's
Oh boy.
those were the only questions they really asked, because I think that if I didn't have any insurance, they wouldn't chuck me into the ER,
Right.
you know? And it's just like the whole, like, after insurance kicked in, USC Arcadia Hospital wanted to charge me around $50. They kept on sending me bills. I don't want to pay for it. And then,
Hmm.
like, Arcadia Fire Department sends me that bill for $474.74. And then Kaiser charged me over 2,800. And it's just like, if this is an involuntary hospitalization, then why the F do I have to pay for it?
Right.
You know? So, I'm not the type to file lawsuits, but frig, when injustice is done to you, you can't just accept it.
Right.
And and so that's why, as a psychiatric survivor and someone who believes in civil rights, and being part of a lineage that, you know, that that was pro, you know, the democratization of Taiwan, you know, like,
Hmm.
you know, like, I believe in moving and shaking the system so that it can change for the
Hmm.
betterment of everyone. So I I I find ways to try to help me help myself so that I can be a voice for psychiatric survivors. And it really helped that I got on the front page of the San Marino Tribune 2 Thursdays ago, and I'm
Yes, I
just,
saw that, and I sent you a like congratulating you on your endeavors.
thank you, thank you. It feels good to be heard, to be seen, to be acknowledged, because it's been quite the emotional roller coaster journey over 10 plus years, to the point I've had drama with my own biological family. And
Hmm.
um yeah, so it just um yeah, it's the yeah, it's been such it felt like an uphill battle, to be very honest, you
I can
know.
imagine. I
Yeah.
remember a couple years ago, I was invited to speak at the Church of Scientology over in Hollywood. I was there as a speaker,
Wow.
but not for Spanish United, but I was invited as an interfaith thing. And I remember one of the things that the Museum of Deaf, I believe that the Scientology has, it exposes
Mhm.
a lot of things that happen in the psychiatric industry, and it's gotten to the point that a lot of it has been influenced by eugenics, which was in Nazi Germany back in the 1930s and 40s. And you're right, I do believe that there needs to be some reforms where it becomes more humane because if you really look at mental health, like compared to other developed countries, the United States is the only developed country in the world where its mental health industry, or should I say, its mental health for its citizens, ranks at the bottom of the list. And a lot of that can be changed. We do have the resources, but I just feel that the policies that are being put in place, are not assisting the people in need. And as you know, the healthcare system in general is not universal. It's for profit, and that's something that needs to eventually change because it's not benefiting anyone. It's just benefiting a select few. Like for example, when I was in Norway back in 2022 when I was gonna get married, I had injured myself and I was a tourist. When I went there, they didn't ask me for insurance or ID, anything. All they asked me was for your name and birth date. It was
Mhm.
quick, spoke English. They gave me the treatment that I needed. I had injured my knee when I fell over the escalator, and that was it. And they didn't give me a hard time. Like here in the States, God forbid I were to get injured, I will probably go into bankruptcy because the medical bills are outrageous. And many people have actually gone bankrupt in the United States because of medical bills, not because of irresponsibility, because of medical bills that they cannot pay. So I feel that aside from the reforms need to be changed, the cost of mental health needs to be lowered because many people who want to access healthcare can't access it because they simply cannot afford it. So I feel that when communities get together, like particularly the Hispanic and Asian community, and they put pressure on to their civil and government leaders, I think it will make them make concessions because I feel that the more as a society we lobby to make mental health accessible, I feel that a lot of the social problems can be contained. They cannot be eliminated 100%, but at least they can be contained. Like when you invited me to I think it was the Latino healthcare thing over in San Gabriel. I had the opportunity to
Yeah.
speak and with a few people. I did
Yeah.
mention that there needs to be more resources put into healthcare because, like I mentioned, too many Hispanic people that are going through mental health crisis are not criminals. They either have a substance abuse or alcohol abuse or whatever, and
Hmm.
many of these people, if they don't get killed, they end up in the prison system and they become another statistic within the system. So after African Americans, Hispanic Americans are the second largest incarcerated group in the country, primarily because of the criminalization of mental health. So I feel that our leaders need to be aware that when someone is sent to prison not because they committed a crime, but just because they're having a mental breakdown, it destroys not only that person's family, it destroys the community, and it destroys the economy of that community. And that's something that we need to prevent as much as we can.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I mean, the cost of mental health care can be quite expensive for therapists. Like they might cost like an one session over $100. I think the cheapest that a session costs these days might be $80, sliding scale.
Right.
Here's the thing, what the system does not promote enough of: peer support, mutual aid,
Correct.
community. because there are free support groups that do exist out there, talking about various types of things. Like today, I joined a support group for psychiatric survivors based in Massachusetts, the Wildflower Alliance.
Oh,
They
wow.
host, yeah. So, and then another group that I sometimes go to is like this writing group that meets on Zoom. And they're also based on the East Coast. They're called the Mad Writing Collective. And I've
Mhm.
been a featured writer for that website, where I also shared my story of being 5150'd by 988, and how I was had a terrible conversation with a literally white bitch nurse at the USC Arcadia Hospital,
Wow.
uh, who was like, she was so rude to me. She was the one who took away my phone without telling me why. And I wanted to know in writing, like, in writing, why did you take away my phone? Why is this part of your policy? And she never came up with it. And like, she also had the audacity to throw away my breakfast. She asked me, "Oh, do you want your breakfast?" And she throws it away, doesn't wait for my answer. And my husband's right there and visiting, and she's like, "Oh, you'll get your lunch soon enough after." I'm like, what the fuck, bitch? Like, that's what I'm
Wow.
thinking, you know? Like, how effing rude. And so, and then the next day, so I write in my article, in my writing on men, women in the attic, that she asked me, so what do you do for a living? And I don't really make money doing this, but I also sometimes also say I'm a suicide prevention advocate. And she's like, then what are you doing here?
Okay.
I just like, in my head, I'm like, fuck, bitch. Like, you won. I didn't want to die. I didn't want to die by cop just for wanting to walk home that night.
Hmm.
I want to stay alive, you know,
Of
like,
course.
and and like you said, people who have emotional meltdowns can oftentimes, including people with autism, can often be killed by officers, police,
Hmm.
for just just because police don't understand how to interact with an individual with these with conditions, you
Hmm.
know.
Correct.
And it's just they're not equipped to handle those situations, so they technically should not be the ones called upon to handle this. And it's like, because they don't, they're just like, their protocol is like, okay, go check them to the ER. We don't know how
Right.
to deal with this, you know. What if this
Well,
person?
again,
Yeah.
there needs to be like a separate department exclusively to handle cases of mental health crises. Like I mentioned, in
Mhm.
many countries, they have both. They have law enforcement and they have mental health crisis prevention, where they do have law enforcement and a mental health professional that goes to handle a call to also to try to prevent a mental health crisis from getting out of control. But unfortunately, in the United States, the law enforcement academies, aside from they're not trained, in many cases they just don't care. That's the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, because
That's the
it's like
problem.
they don't know, they've never heard of these stories, or these stories are not shared enough, or, you know, they don't even bother to ask, you know, what happens to a person when they're taken inside the healthcare system, who actually doesn't really know how to handle the situation, because they don't even, they make all these assumptions, and then they believe what they're doing by the book is good for the patient, when they don't even ask the patient what their needs are, you know?
Right. There's a saying that goes that, when one tries to follow the letter of the law, it becomes how do I say, it becomes disastrous because you could follow everything by the book, but you can't follow it 100%. So people are human, they make mistakes, and sometimes they might make a mistake that eventually could cost somebody's life.
Yep,
You know
for
that
sure.
I've seen many cases, and I do believe that again, unless we as a community, excuse me, we try to pressure our leaders to make reforms. I just don't see the healthcare, I mean, not the healthcare, the mental health system changing. And I feel that over time, people are going to get worse. And I feel that it's in the long run becomes unsustainable. And I feel that it's very important that we need to make mental health a national priority and also a national security priority as well. It's very important for social, economic, and political stability for the country as a whole.
Yeah, I think part of mental health though is also working to build community because I feel that so many people are living in isolation. It's so easy for people to feel lonely in our country. And but it's like the news makes us easily distrust people and not reach out to a neighbor to say hello, how are you? And we're so disconnected, but it's like no, there is medicine in being with community, finding people that align with your value system.
Mm.
And because for me growing up in a community where I just didn't feel like I fit in. I wanted to talk about the meaning of life, but when people are only talking about surface level things, like, and caring about like looking good and making lots of money, and it, it's like money is helps with life, but it's not everything. I feel like community is what makes life more meaningful. When you have those friendships, when you have those people who make your life better, the quality of your life better, not because someone is paid to do it, like be your companion. It the community friendships, I feel like our world is it when people feel disconnected, it's makes people, I think that's how people have not very good mental health, because when you're not connected with people, and maybe low self-esteem can also cause one to have no connection with others. I
Well,
remember
yeah,
being
it's various factors. It could be social, it could be, not have self-loading, it could be various things. But you did talk on a very important point, like particularly in the United States, it's unique because, we're focused more on individualism and making money than about having a sense of community or living in an egalitarian society. So I think that's one of the reasons why mental health tends to be worse over here than in other countries. And I
mm,
feel that you know, unless people are educated that money is not the source of happiness,
yes.
I feel that, people are not going to have empathy for those that are not the same. Like I myself, like I do believe that our society judges you not necessarily by what you look like or what your ethnicity is, but based on your status and social standing. And I feel that unless that changes, that we judge people by by their character and not by their social and economic status, I think, our society is not going to improve. Like when I was in Cuba years ago, they didn't
Hmm.
care if I was wealthy or not. All they care about how my character was.
Mm,
And I still have friends in Cuba that I talk to, and it's been like 4 years I haven't been there, and they say like, "Hey, how are you? How's everything
mhm.
going?" And
Yeah.
that's something that you don't really see in a capitalist society.
Mm, yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, I have lived in Santiago, Chile, para 4 meses after college, and I enjoyed being able to use my high school Spanish after college. And Ya, allá yo tomé un programa para enseñar inglés como segundo idioma.
Hmm.
And I just, like, when I met the Chilean people there, like, I called up one of my friends on a landline, and the parents picked up, and the father was, like, so kind. And he was like he never met me, doesn't even, has never seen my face, and yet he calls me mija, my
Right.
daughter. I'm like, wow, that's so, like, affectionate in words. And I really like that. So
Hispanic culture in general tends to be warm and familiar compared to like Asian culture.
Yeah, actually, so I was born in Arkansas. We were
Hmm.
like, I was always the only Asian kid in the class of black and white students. And
Hmm.
so moving to the San Gabriel Valley in 1988, oh my gosh, was such a culture shock. I'm like, oh my God, there's too many Asians now.
Right, of course. I lived in Michigan for a few years, and it was a culture shock
Uh-huh.
for me because I was the only Hispanic person in the whole area. I stood out too. And over there it
Yeah.
was all white people. There wasn't even black people there. So it was even more of a culture shock because many of the people there have never even met a Hispanic person.
Wow. I see, I see. Yeah. Yeah. So how long were you there for?
I was there for about 5 years, and then when I was in Missouri for 2 years, so almost 10 years in total. And then I
How
moved
did you
back to California. I'm sorry?
how, how did you end up there?
It's a long story,
Oh,
but to
okay.
but but to make it short, I moved over there because my mom wanted to be closer to my brother at a state. So that was one of the reasons why we moved out of California. But we moved back
Mm-hmm.
to California 16 years ago, and let me tell you, California's not perfect, but at least there's more of one's people, especially if you are a person of color. The Midwest, believe it or not, is very segregated. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
unless you are living in an area that is all white or all black, if you are Hispanic or Asian, you will definitely stand out.
Mm, I see, I see. Yeah, I think because I was there in Arkansas like until first grade, the end of first grade, like when you're a kid that small, I didn't know what race was. So like I think I didn't really know I was different because no one treated me differently. And so,
Hmm.
but I think I might have felt special because I was like, oh, I'm the only Emily Wu. And then when I moved to the San Gabriel Valley, I meet two more Emily Wus. I'm just like, oh shit, like I'm not special anymore. So
Right,
like,
right.
but actually, now that I've been married for 14 years, I Truong, Truong is my last name, and so I
Hmm.
am the only Emily Wu Truong in the world.
Well, of course, when one gets married, you assume the surname of your spouse. That's how it works.
Yeah, yeah. I made my maiden name my middle name. I don't like the dash thing that some women do after they get married. So
Right,
yeah,
right.
so my last name. And so yeah, it's like I made myself special again, being the only Emily Wu Trong. If people look up my name online, like that can only be me because there's so
Right.
many Emily Wus, so many Emily Trongs, but there's only one Emily Wu Trong.
Well, that's what makes us individuals. Well, anyway, Emily, we've come to the end of our time, but again, I want to tell you thank you so much for being a guest on our show. And for all of our
Yeah.
listeners listening on Spanish United Radio, we are on Spanish United Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and known as X. We are on YouTube. We are a nonprofit organization. Anything that anyone wants to donate, feel free to do so. Anything helps. And no one should be made to feel like a prisoner on their account of their mental health. It's that's my word of advice to those that are going through mental health. And I will definitely pass on the link to you so that you could share it to your colleagues. And again, thank you so much for being on the guest. You have been a wonderful guest.
Thank you, Enrique. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Likewise, have yourself a good evening.
Yeah.
Bye bye.